At my own birthday party. My mother leaned toward my brother and whispered, her voice quieter than a breath. After dinner, go to her place and change all the locks. I thought I had misheard, but my father gave a small nod, calm as if it were just another household matter. And I, the one who had paid for this entire dinner, could only swallow my smile. I cut the cake, handed out each slice, and tried to keep my hands from shaking. My mother still sat there, her perfect smile glowing under the warm yellow light, reflecting off the diamond bracelet on her wrist. It was a beautiful scene. If only I hadn't just been betrayed in the middle of my own birthday celebration. A phone buzzed. Eric, my brother, had already left under her command. His voice trembled when he came back. There's police tape around her door. The air at the table froze solid. Only I, sitting in the center of that dinner, understood that everything had just begun to fall apart. Before I tell you what happened after that moment, tell me where you're watching this video from. Hit like and subscribe, because what happens next will shock you. Now, let's go back to that evening. Rain fell against the glass of Rainlight Café, stretching into silver streaks. The piano blended with the clinking of glasses, creating a kind of elegance that felt suffocating. The candlelight flickered across the table, reflecting through red wine and my mother's flawless smile. To anyone looking in from the outside, it was a picture of a happy family, a calm father, a graceful mother, and two siblings chatting pleasantly. But beneath that warm glow, I felt only one thing: cold. Cold like the raindrops sliding down the window, falling endlessly with nowhere to land. My name is Lena Ashford, 30 years old, a financial consultant and a single mother. For 10 years, I've tried to prove I'm good enough for my mother to see me differently. I worked relentlessly. I never asked them for a single cent, only hoping that one day I could sit at the same table without feeling like an outsider. But tonight, I finally understood some people will never truly see you, even when you're sitting right in front of them. I'm her daughter, but to my mother, I'm just a walking disappointment. My mother, Elaine Ashford, kept smiling. That smile was soft enough to fool anyone but to me. It was sharper than a knife. She gently swirled her wine glass, the metallic shimmer of her Cartier bracelet glinting against her pale wrist. No one in that room knew that this elegant woman had just ordered her son to change the locks on her daughter's home. My father sat still, his gaze avoiding mine. My brother Eric gave a small nod when she looked his way out of habit. I knew that signal. I'd seen it all my life. My mother gave orders, and the men in our house stayed silent. Lena, aren't you eating? I just made my wish. Mom, I want to keep this smile a little longer. Good, she said, her voice sweet as honey, her eyes cold as steel. I cut another piece of cake. The knife hit the plate with a dry sound. I forced myself to swallow, but the cream tasted bitter. Like every memory tied to this family, my phone vibrated. The screen glowed under the candlelight. Miss Ashford, this is Inspector Cole Mercer. Your apartment has been sealed off. Please contact us immediately. I stared at the message, my heart pounding wildly. My apartment sealed off. My thoughts spun out of control. But around me there was still only polite laughter and the faint scent of expensive perfume. No one asked if I was okay. No one noticed my face had gone pale. Eric stood up, pulling his keys from his pocket. I'll get the car, he said flatly. My mother simply nodded, calm and composed. I knew she didn't need to say another word. The order had already been carried out. An hour later, Eric came back, rain-soaked, his face ghost white. There's police tape around her door. The entire table went silent. The rain outside sounded like it was counting every heartbeat. I gripped the cake knife tightly, and in that moment, I understood. They didn't just want to lock my door. They were trying to lock away the life I had just begun. My mother wanted to lock the door. I whispered, but what she really did was open the door to the one truth the Ashford family fears most. Rain lashed against the glass, stretching into bright streaks like knife marks. Seattle drowned in the night. Windows flickering across the wet streets. I gripped the steering wheel until my knuckles turned white. The wipers scraped back and forth, swish. Swish sounding like my own heartbeat pounding out of rhythm. Inspector Cole Mercer's text still glowed on my lock screen, Miss Ashford. Your apartment has been sealed off. Please contact us immediately. I called back, on the other end. Only the sound of rain hitting the microphone, then a calm, steady voice. Just come here. And stay calm. Stay calm, easier said than done. I had a son. I had a home. I had an entire small life I needed to protect. All of it was somewhere in this rain. Fading behind the flashing red lights ahead. Red light. I stopped. Steam rose from the hood. The smell of hot metal mixing with the rain. I placed a hand over my chest and counted slowly. 1, 2, 3. Then released the brake. When I turned onto my street, the blue and red lights of police cars spilled across the puddles, splitting the road in two between good and evil. The yellow tape stretched across the entrance of my building, trembling in the wind. The smell of wet plastic, electricity, and cold rain slipped through my coat. A young officer walked up, folding his umbrella. Are you Lena Ashford? I nodded. He gestured for me to step under the awning. I'm Inspector Cole Mercer. You got here just in time. We've just secured the scene. I barely managed to ask, why is my apartment sealed off? He looked at me, eyes serious, but calm. Someone reported a break-in. The door was forced open. But, he paused. Nothing was taken. That sentence hit me like a stone thrown into a still lake. Nothing taken yet. I knew normal no longer existed. We went up the stairs. Cole's shoes echoed against the damp concrete, his radio crackling in the long hallway. He spoke slowly, evenly, like someone guiding me through a maze he already knew by heart. Someone called 911 at 8:36. They heard a metallic screech and thought it was a burglary. Who? A neighbor downstairs. When we arrived, the door had been pried open with a crowbar. Not someone with a key. My brother Eric has a key. I said, my voice so small, even I barely heard it. Cole nodded. He was at the cafe. He told us before he went back there. But his eyes settled on me. The door was broken before that. When we stopped at apartment 3B, I saw the wooden frame cracked, with paint peeling away in strips. Among the splinters, the nameplate Ashford still clung to one side. Cole put on gloves and gently pushed the door open, which had been temporarily propped back in place. Follow me, but don't touch anything. I froze. A question flashed in my mind, one my logic didn't want to face. If it wasn't someone with a key, then why did my mother tell Eric to change the locks? A chill raced down my spine, faster than the rain outside. Something was wrong. Terribly wrong. The living room looked exactly as I had left it that morning, the sofa, the gray blanket, and the coffee cup with a dried brown ring. No signs of rummaging. Nothing stolen. And that was exactly what scared me. The air inside the bedroom felt different. The scent of splintered wood, iron, and rain drifted through the doorframe. The door had been ripped from its hinges, the wood torn open like a wound that hadn't healed. I stepped forward. My toe brushed a line of white powder. On the vanity, every photo frame of me and my son Noah was turned face down. School photos, trips, birthdays, every single one faced the wall. Cole stood behind me. His voice lowered. Nothing was taken. He just touched what mattered most to you. I didn't respond. A metallic bitterness rose in my throat. When he bent down and picked up a white envelope neatly placed on the desk, I knew it wasn't meant for the police. He opened it carefully, using his gloves to unfold a single sheet of paper. A line was printed in the center. Tell your mother the truth always finds its way home. Just one sentence. No name. No signature. But the word mother struck my chest harder than the sight of the broken door. Cole slipped the paper into an evidence bag. The rain on the roof grew heavier. He turned on his radio. His voice rough from the cold. "We've got preliminary fingerprint results. Send them to my device." A tone beeped then. He held out the screen toward me. A name appeared. Todd Hales. "He's the building's maintenance worker." I said quickly, "I met him last month." He fixed the plumbing. Cole gave a short nod. "We caught him 30 minutes ago. Near the corner. There was a crowbar in his backpack." He didn't say anything about the note. He paused, looking at me longer. But the bank transfer to his account said plenty. "What transfer a payment of $5,000 sent yesterday? Memo maintenance." The sender wasn't the building's management company. It was a personal account. I stood still. The rain seemed to freeze around us. Only one word echoed in my mind: maintenance. My mother's voice drifted back from memory. "There's no such thing as a mistake. Only a minor adjustment." Cole looked at me, his tone dropping lower. "You should sit down. Lena, there's something you need to know." I sat on the edge of the chair, my hand still gripping my purse strap. "That transfer came from someone not unfamiliar to you." He placed a hot paper cup of coffee in my hands. The blue and red lights outside flickered through the window in rhythm with the sirens. "The sender's name," Cole said slowly, every word deliberate, "is Elaine Ashford." For a second, I felt my heartbeat stop. In that strobing light, I couldn't tell what was rain and what were tears. Apartment 3B was quiet, as if the rain outside had sucked all the air out of the room. Warm yellow light bled through the blinds, pooling on the wall in broken patches. On the table, a police coffee cup left behind was still warm. I sat there, listening to the rain hit the tin roof. Every drop like a ticking countdown. I thought I should call Eric. Or someone. But no, I didn't know what to say. My mother had done something I could not understand. I poured water, my hand trembling slightly. Water spilled across the table, dropping in single beads onto the floor. I watched those drops, one by one, as if every second were sliding away from my old life. I thought I was used to silence, but that night, it sounded like a verdict. The phone lit up. One unheard voicemail. I hit speaker, my finger shaking as I tapped the small triangular icon. "Miss Ashford, this is Cole Mercer. I'm sorry to call so early, but we've verified the transfer. The source is Elaine Ashford. I know that's hard to hear. Call back when you're ready." His voice was low, warm, and without judgment, but each word fell on me like metal onto tile. Elaine Ashford. My mother's name. The woman who used to say, "I do everything for you." I stood and walked a few steps around the room. The rain still fell outside the window. The streetlight's glow on the wall looked like pale streaks of blood. I gripped my phone so tight. My fingertips went numb. My mother paid someone to break into my home. What could she fear so much that she would do that? An image flashed in my mind, the attic of our old house. The smell of damp wood. Dust motes in a narrow beam of light. And my footsteps as I searched for Noah's old toy box. I remember pulling the wrong cardboard box. The lid popped open. Dust rose like smoke. Inside were files. Documents. Bank letters, and a folder stamped with the words Property Trust, Lena Ashford. Back then, I laughed. I thought it was an old file my father left. Maybe an insurance plan or some investment paperwork. But now, I knew I had touched something I should not have seen. I remember clearly the signatures at the bottom were not mine. They were written in a stiff. I even hand my father's handwriting. That day I thought it was just my father's old papers. Now I know it was the evidence my mother wanted buried. I opened my phone and scrolled through the photo library. Pictures from 1 month earlier were still there, the asset declaration, the sale contracts, offshore accounts all bearing my name, but I had never signed them. The blue light from the screen flashed across my face, cold as steel. In my head, the pieces began to click together. The white envelope on the desk, the unknown fingerprints in the bedroom, the maintenance payment my mother sent to Todd Hales. And now, those papers. I clenched my phone, my breath heavy. The whole truth was right here in my palm, and it was so filthy I wanted to wash my hands, even though I knew water would not cleanse it. They didn't just use my name, they used my life as a screen. I stood and went straight into the bedroom. The room was still messy, but now I was not afraid. I switched on every light. Warm light flooded the walls, casting back the photos I had set upright. I pulled the drawer open and took out the real file, the one I had hidden under the blanket. Deep inside the drawer, I opened it. Old papers, forged signatures, strange numbers. There was no doubt left. I was the legal named owner of properties that had never belonged to me. I inhaled and then dialed Cole again. When he answered, I heard my own voice, calm and steady in a way that surprised me. I have something you need to see. And this time, don't tell me to stay calm. If the truth can shatter this family, then let me be the one to unseal it. I hung up. The rain still fell on the porch. But inside, only the yellow light shone on an old family photo. Mother, father, and me as a child. 3 smiling faces in a wooden frame. But now I could not see that smile anymore. I touched the glass. My finger left a smudge. Outside, the phone buzzed. A new message from an unknown number. Stop digging. Lena. Or next time. We won't miss. I read the line without blinking. A raindrop slid from the window frame and landed on the back of my hand, cold and sharp as steel. I tightened my grip on the phone. My voice hoarse. It's too late. I whispered. I've already started. The kitchen glowed with warm light, everything spotless to the point of feeling artificial. I aligned each fork and knife perfectly and poured red wine into tall crystal glasses, listening to the gentle swirl that matched the rhythm of my heartbeat. On the table sat a simple dinner salmon, mashed potatoes, and cold salad. The scent of butter and garlic filled the apartment, but no one was really hungry. Mother was coming. I had invited her with a short message. 7 o'clock. No games, she replied in less than 10 seconds. Fine, but you'd better be ready for the truth. The rain had stopped. The air inside the apartment was unnaturally still. This dinner wasn't meant to be eaten. It was an autopsy of a family long dead. Footsteps echoed from the stairs. The door opened. Mother walked in black coat. Hermes bag. The scent of expensive perfume gliding through the air like a declaration. Her eyes swept over the table, half approval, half inspection. You still keep things minimalist. I see. I learned from you, I replied, pouring wine for both of us. We sat down. Silverware clinked softly against porcelain. No one spoke. Only the wall clock ticked down each second. And in my mother's eyes, that same look, as always cold. Precise. Calculating. So, she said, swirling her wine. What are we talking about first? The truth? I whispered. The air thickened, as if someone had drained all the oxygen from the room. Dinner officially began. I looked straight into her eyes. Let's talk about Todd Hales. The wine glass in her hand froze mid-air. A ripple trembling along the rim. Who the man you paid? The one arrested for breaking into my home. She set the glass down slowly, smiling faintly. Don't be naive. Lena, I hired him to fix the plumbing. He's just ungrateful. I took out my phone and opened a photo. A screenshot of a bank transfer $5,000. Memo maintenance. What pipe costs $5,000 to fix? Mother said nothing. The warm light reflected on her neck, highlighting the tense vein beneath her skin. She took a sip of wine, but her hand trembled slightly. For the first time in my life, I realized she was afraid. She just didn't know how to hide it yet. You don't understand what you've gotten yourself into, she said quietly. No, I replied, I understand perfectly. I know about the attic files, about the properties under my name, and about the forged signatures. The room went silent, a vacuum of sound. After a moment, she laughed. That same laugh that used to make me shrink in shame as a child. You always dramatize everything. Those signatures were your father's. He did that to protect us. Protect us by making me the legal name for money laundering. The words shot out before I realized I'd said them. Her wine spilled across the table, spreading into a dark red stain like blood. Mother stood up, eyes sharp as blades. You have no idea what you're walking into. And you do. By hiring someone to break into my home, neither of us spoke again. Only the soft drip of wine on the floor filled the silence. In that dim light, I saw something I'd never seen before: my mother losing control. Why? Mom, I asked softly. Because of your father, she said, her breath heavy. You don't understand what he did. I stepped back. Then tell me. I have the right to know. Not now. When? Then. When I've lost everything. She turned away, her voice dropping to a whisper. You think your father was just a businessman. He had dealings you were never meant to see. If you stay silent, everything will be fine. But you've touched something dangerous. Dangerous. The word hung in the air, mingling with the smell of wine, sharp and bitter. I looked at her and saw it clearly now. Fear replacing pride in her eyes. For the first time, I understood the lies were never to protect the family. They were to protect power. I set my glass down, my voice steady. So all of this was just to protect him. She raised her head and met my eyes. The same eyes that once made me believe everything she said were now dim under the candlelight. She inhaled deeply and said slowly, No. Lena, it was to protect you. The room collapsed. The clock stopped ticking. Everything froze between two women. One the victim, the other the puppeteer. My wineglass was still full. I lifted it, staring at the red beneath the candlelight, thick as blood, like the secret she had just spilled. If you're still listening to this story, comment the number 1. I'll send you my deepest thanks, because you are a truly remarkable listener. The room sank into silence. My mother's words kept echoing in my head like the sound of glass shattering. No. Lena, it was to hide you. The candle on the table flickered, then went out. The bluish light from the refrigerator spilled across half of her face, the other half lost in shadow. I tried to speak, but my throat locked up. Hide me, I repeated, my voice barely my own. She didn't answer right away. She sat down, her hand trembling on the wineglass. If you really want to know, she said slowly, then listen to all of it. When someone like Elaine Ashford says the truth, it means someone is about to lose everything. 27 years ago, she began, your father wasn't just a businessman. He manipulated investment funds and funneled money through dozens of shell companies. When everything was about to collapse, he needed another name to hold all the assets. She paused and looked at me. A clean name. I could hear my heartbeat, each thump cutting through the distant ticking of the clock. And he chose me. No. Lena, you didn't even exist yet. Her lips quivered, her voice cracked. We adopted you not out of kindness, but because you carried another man's last name, a child left behind in the witness protection program. Your identity was the perfect cover. He built a new file, a perfect daughter, to hide his dirty money. Every sound in my head went still. So the motherly love I clung to for 29 years was just camouflage. I wasn't betrayed. I had never really belonged to that family at all. I looked down at my shaking hands. So, Lena Ashford never existed. Not in the way you think. She whispered. That name was a contract. A tool to protect your father. To keep us alive. A hoarse laugh escaped my throat. Alive by turning someone else into a sacrifice. She said nothing. I stepped back toward the window. Outside, The city drowned in mist. The name I once loved, once took pride in, was now just a code in a hidden banking network. I used to think if I were good enough, you'd see me as your daughter. I said, now I know I was just evidence. Some truths don't kill you. They simply make you stop believing you ever existed. Why did you keep doing it? I asked. My voice cold. Because I had no choice, she said, closing her eyes. No, because you chose power over conscience. I moved closer to the table, my voice low but steady. Were you hiding him? Or hiding yourself? The dim light hit her face, and for the first time, I saw real emptiness in her eyes. You don't understand, she said, almost pleading. If I hadn't done it, we would have been destroyed. You wouldn't have this life. What life? A false name? A home built on guilt? Mother stood up and screamed. I was trying to protect you. I looked at her, tears spilling, but my voice ice cold. No. You were trying to protect the lie. When a liar convinces herself she's acting out of love, that's when truth becomes a weapon. Elaine collapsed into her chair, her face twisted. For the first time in my life, I saw my mother cry. Not perfect makeup. No poise. Just a broken woman who had lost all her power. I never meant for it to go this far, she said between ragged breaths. But your father, he disappeared, leaving everything in your name. I was only trying to erase the trail, to keep anyone from finding out. And Todd Hales, he blackmailed me. He knew about the original records. I just wanted them back so you wouldn't get dragged in. Tears fell down my face. I didn't know if it was pity or disgust. You thought I needed saving, I thought I still could. A long silence filled the room. I inhaled deeply, looking at the woman who once told me, weakness is failure. Now she was weaker than anyone I had ever seen. Maybe it was in that moment I realized people who control others are often the most lost of all. I turned away, walking toward the door. No more tears. Only the cold settling in my chest. I won't let anyone hide me again, I said quietly. I unlocked my phone. The screen lit up. A new message from Cole Mercer. I don't think she told you everything. I lifted my head, the blue light reflecting across my face. Outside, thunder rumbled in the distance, a sign that another storm was coming. Cole's message was still glowing on my screen. I don't think she told you everything. I read it 3 times. The phone's light reflected against the window, where raindrops fell one by one, slow as seconds on a clock. I texted back, I'm listening, where 10 minutes later, I was in the car, coat drenched. The city at night shimmered, the red lights of patrol cars flickering over the wet streets. Cole was waiting for me in a small conference room at the precinct. The white neon light made him look more exhausted than usual. You need to see this, he said, placing a folder on the table. Some truths aren't hidden in darkness. They sit right under light so bright that no one dares to look directly. Cole opened the folder, his finger brushing over the seal. I checked the account your mother was hiding. One record was deleted from the system, but we recovered it. He turned the computer screen toward me. The data appeared account holder Ashford Holdings, 3 beneficiaries. I froze. 3 people, correct. Elaine, you, and one other name. Cole paused, choosing each word carefully. This name appears in every transaction over the past 10 years. Not your mother. Not you. I looked at the 3rd line. A short, cold name. Like ink bleeding into paper, Thomas K. Ashford. I could hear my heartbeat, a single sound echoing in the metal room. That name had been dead for 17 years, according to my mother herself. Who is this? I asked, my voice rough. Cole studied me for a long moment. According to the death certificate, your father. But he slid another envelope across the table. Inside was a scanned passport and a man's photo with familiar eyes and a smile eerily like mine. This passport was used to open an account in Zurich 2 years ago. I stepped back. The chair screeched against the floor. That's impossible. She said he died in an accident. There's no matching accident report. Cole replied. Voice low. You've been chasing a ghost who's still alive. I didn't know if I was angry or terrified. Everything spun my mother. The files. The confession. All just fog hiding someone else. If the man I thought was dead still lived who had really been buried, I stood by the window, watching the flashing lights outside. I'm going public with this, I said firmly. Cole turned. Are you sure? Once you do, there's no turning back. I'm done turning back. He looked at me longer than usual. I'll help. There's a justice office press conference tomorrow morning. If you agree, I'll arrange for you to speak and hand over all the evidence. I nodded. In my head, I heard my mother's voice. I only wanted to protect you. Protect through lies. Now, I would protect myself through truth. Truth isn't light, it's fire. And I was ready to let the past burn. Camera flashes exploded. Dozens of microphones. Reporters shouting questions. I stood at the podium beside Cole. Before me was a wall of people waiting to hear something that would change everything. My name is Lena Ashford, I said, my voice steady through the microphone. The assets in my name do not belong to me. They are the product of a network built to hide crimes created by my own family. The room fell silent. I saw my mother in the back row, her face pale, her hands gripping her handbag. If anyone here has ever been forced into silence by the power of their own bloodline, remember, truth doesn't kill you. It saves you. A storm of flashes burst. Cole nodded slightly and handed the documents to the lead reporter. Mother leapt to her feet, shouting, You don't know what you're doing. I turned to her, the stage lights glinting off her tear-wet face. I'm doing what you never dared to. The room erupted with noise, but for the first time, I heard my own voice, clear and unwavering. The press conference ended. Cole walked me out of the building. Rain was falling again, washing away the makeup, washing away the fear. I unlocked my phone. A new anonymous message appeared. You trust Cole. He works for Thomas. I looked up. Cole stood a few steps away, the streetlight reflecting across his face. He smiled, slowly, enough to make my heart stop for a beat. The message still glowed on my phone screen, cutting through the dark of the hallway. You trust Cole, he works for Thomas. The dim light reflected against my face. A raindrop slid down and spread across the glass like a blot of ink. I stood there, hearing my heartbeat like a broken clock fast. Then slow, then uneven again. Far ahead. Cole was calling for a cab. His figure tilted under the streetlight. He turned back and waved that familiar smile. But this time, I didn't wave back. I just watched him. For a long moment, as if trying to find answers inside the shadow of my own reflection. Sometimes trust doesn't break because of lies. It breaks because you've looked too deeply into the eyes of the person you trusted. The next morning, I arrived at Cole's office earlier than usual. He was making coffee, the scent of roasted beans mixing with the damp paper smell of old files. Rough night, he asked softly. I'm fine, but I need to review the original documents you gave me. Cole frowned slightly. Why? Because something doesn't add up. The air cooled between us. He let out a short, defensive laugh. You think I forged them, I think. Someone touched them before I did. I spoke calmly. But my eyes didn't leave his hand, his thumb tapping the coffee cup. 3 beats. Pause. 3 beats again. A habit when he was nervous. When someone starts counting in silence, it means they're measuring the distance between guilt and trust. That evening, I went back to the precinct. No one was in the records room. I logged into the system, using Cole's temporary code, the one he'd taught me. For emergencies. The screen flickered, revealing a list of files: Ashford Confidential, V3, Final, PDF. I opened it. The metadata revealed something that froze my blood, last edited by C. Mercer. He hadn't just viewed the file. He had edited it the night before my mother's confession. My hand shook as I pulled out a USB drive. Every memory replayed every trust me. Every reassuring tone. Every look that felt real. Now I didn't know which was true, his voice or the data he'd left behind. There is no betrayal more painful than realizing the manipulator still says your name gently. I waited for Cole in the underground parking lot. The rain was heavy. Yellow lights shimmered across the puddles. He walked toward me. Unsurprised. I knew you'd come. And I know you altered the files. He didn't answer. You work for Thomas. Don't you know? He said. Then paused. Not entirely. I tightened my grip on the USB. I trusted you because I thought you stood for the truth. I still do. Lena. But the truth isn't as simple as you think. His voice broke through the rain. Thomas didn't run. Elaine set him up. She staged the accident and made him disappear. He's been in hiding, but he kept sending money to you. Through me. I shook my head. The tears wouldn't come. Why didn't I know? Because they both wanted to protect you from the truth. I laughed bitterly. Protect me how? By building a fake life. Sometimes lying is the only way to love someone. He whispered. I turned to him. His eyes glistened in the car light. Unsure if from rain or tears. In that moment, I saw the most terrifying thing of all. It wasn't about who was right or wrong, it was about who was willing to pay for what they believed was right. There are two kinds of truth, one to speak and one to carry until you die. Cole pulled a small USB from his pocket and placed it in my hand. This has a recording. If you open it, you'll understand everything. And if I don't, you'll keep the little piece you have left. He looked at me one last time. Lena. Sometimes truth doesn't set you free. It destroys you. I gripped the USB drive. Standing in the middle of the parking lot as car lights reflected in the rainwater. In it, my face appeared distorted. Split in two, like two versions of myself staring at each other. Morning light fell across the wooden floor like a ribbon of silk. No more rain. No sirens. No camera flashes like the night before. Only silence, not the kind born from emptiness, but from exhaustion after a storm. My small apartment was the same. A cold cup of coffee. A wet coat draped over a chair. And shoes streaked with mud. In the middle of the table lay the USB drive, small. Black. A cold like a fragment of memory. I still couldn't bring myself to touch. I sat down and stared at it for a long time. The sun rose slowly. Light sliding across the glass and landing on my trembling hand. There was no one left to question. No one to confront. Only me and the truth. Still waiting to be opened. Sometimes, the most terrifying silence isn't what follows loss, but when there's no one left to blame. The morning passed slowly. I brewed another cup of coffee. The roasted scent hinted at an ordinary day, but nothing felt ordinary anymore. The USB was still there. An unspoken Invitation. I plugged it in. A soft chime. Then the screen lit up. Play the Ashford truth. I watched the cursor blink over the play button. My finger hovered, then stopped. I realized it wasn't the truth I feared, but the thought that once I knew everything, I might lose the reason to keep hating, to stay strong, to keep living for something. I pulled the USB out and gently placed it back in its box. Took a deep breath. The scent of coffee filled the air, the smell of something ordinary I'd lost long ago. Sometimes courage isn't about opening. It's about knowing when to stop. By noon, I sat by the window. A blank sheet of paper and a pen before me. Not a report. Not a statement. A letter one I wrote to myself. Lena, if one day you grow tired of justice, remember, justice wasn't made to consume us. It exists to remind us that once, we stood tall. You did the right thing, even when others called it wrong. And if one day you forgive, I don't think it means weakness. Forgiveness only means you've chosen not to carry the wreckage anymore. The paper absorbed the sweat of my palms. The ink blurred slightly. I folded it, slipped it into an envelope, and sealed it, no name on it. Maybe one day I'd read it again, when my heart was calm enough to understand that I had lived right. Forgiveness isn't for others, it's for yourself. So you no longer have to carry them inside you. 2 months later, the Seattle sky was pale blue clear. Still. I stood before a new sign, Ashford Foundation for Women's Justice. The first women walked in, their eyes tired but bright. A young woman, bruises still faint on her wrist, asked softly, "Did you ever win?" I smiled. "No, I didn't win. Against anyone. I just didn't let them win over me." She laughed faintly, tears slipping in silence. In that moment, I knew I had done the right thing, not to take revenge, but to begin again. Outside, sunlight streamed through the glass, shining on the words Ashford Foundation, bright as a promise. Some battles don't end in victory. They end when we choose to heal. That evening, I returned to my mother's house. The mansion looked unchanged, the trees, the pond, and the iron gate that once marked the border of my youth. Elaine sat in the garden, her hair grayer, her eyes no longer sharp. She saw me but said nothing. I walked over and sat across from her. Between us, a teapot had gone cold. "Don't you hate me?" she asked, her voice trembling. "No," I said softly, "because I understand you only did what you believed was right." No tears, no imbrassi, just two people who had hurt each other sitting in silence. I stood first, nodding gently. "I have to go. We're home." For the first time, I heard her voice behind me, "Lena." I turned. "Yes, I'm sorry." I smiled faintly. "I know. Sometimes forgiveness isn't in the words, it's in the choice to stay long enough to hear them." That night, I returned to my apartment and opened the window. The lake shimmered under the moonlight. A soft breeze carried the scent of lavender from the corner of the room. The USB still lay in the wooden box on the desk. I picked it up one last time, then placed it in a drawer and locked it away. I didn't need to know more. I brewed a cup of tea and sat watching the dawn rise. Light spread through the window, warming my hands. Real, gentle, alive. Justice isn't the end. I wrote in my notebook. It's where we begin again for the first time. In peace. Morning light rose higher. Lena closed the notebook and smiled. The morning light was soft as a breath. I opened my eyes as the sunlight slipped through the curtains, touching the open notebook from the night before. No more rain. No knocking at the door. Only stillness. A stillness not empty, but strangely full. I heard the faint breeze brush against the window ledge, carrying the lingering scent of lavender. The warmth of the morning reminded me I was still here. The house was no longer a place of memories. It was the beginning of a new chapter. On the table, the pen still rested beside the notebook. I turned to the last page and wrote the first line of another life. When true light arrives, it doesn't dazzle. It's gentle enough for you to finally face yourself. I thought of everything that had passed, of my mother, the woman who used love like a noose around her daughter's neck, of my father silent for so long that truth decayed, of Cole, the man who taught me that even good people keep their own secrets, and of myself, the woman who once believed justice meant seeing someone punished. Now I understood. True justice is when you no longer need anyone to suffer. I remembered that rainy night when Cole placed the USB in my hand. You can open it or leave it be. I chose to leave it be, and from that moment, everything began to heal. I didn't need to know everything. I just needed to know I was brave enough to let go. Not everyone needs to know the whole truth sometimes. Surviving it is enough. If you're still listening, maybe you've walked through a storm like I did, underestimated, misunderstood, or hurt by the very people you loved most. I just want you to know one thing. No one is born to be broken forever. We can't choose who hurts us, but we can choose who will never get to do it again. Live slower. Because sometimes, what you need isn't an answer. It's peace when you stop searching for one. Maybe forgiveness isn't forgetting. It's learning to smile when you remember. I closed the notebook. Sunlight poured into the room, filling every shadowed corner. The USB still rested in the drawer. Quiet, a reminder that not every door needs to be opened, because some doors exist only to remind you that you already hold the key. I poured myself a cup of tea. The warm scent of ginger filled the room. I wrote a small note in the margin once. I lived to prove I was strong. Today, I live to prove I am at peace. I looked out the window where the early light touched the water. Shimmering, calm, and real. If you're still here, still listening, leave a comment and share your story because your voice matters. And don't forget to hit like and subscribe so I can share more stories of pain, healing, and the quiet strength it takes to begin again.